Hi, my name is Scott Balzer and I'm in Kitchen Science 1140, and today I'm going to be making salmon raisin bread. The first thing you do when cooking is make sure that your surface and everything that you use is clean and sanitized. So before I started, I used the Lysol wipe and I disinfected my area, and I made sure all my pots and pans and things were clean, and I washed my hands thoroughly. So the first thing I did was I took 1.5 cups of milk and I heated it in a small pan on the stove until it started to lightly bubble, and I took it off and I'm letting it cool till about 120. What I did was a process called scalding, and I scald this milk because scalding improves the rising process of the dough. It changes the interactions between the ingredients due to the denatured proteins in the warm milk. So it also allows for the butter to melt easier when mixing everything. Milk basically is used it affects the moisture and tenderness of the product because of the proteins and the fat that's in the milk. So here I have my yeast and water mixture. What I did was I took 1 cup of warm water between 110 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit, because yeast will not grow and multiply unless it's in the right environment, which is a warm one. So I have my yeast and warm water mixture here. Yeast, as well as adding flavor, helps to aerate the dough, which creates like the chew and density of the bread. Yeast undergoes a chemical process that we know as fermentation. Yeast converts carbohydrates into carbon dioxide gas and other alcohols. This CO2 gas is what causes the dough to rise and forms the holes that you see in the bread. So the next thing that I have to do now is mix in eggs to my yeast and water here. I have 3 eggs here. The eggs' purpose is to give your dough a golden brown color, and when the eggs are beaten, it reacts as a coagulant and helps turn the mixtures from a liquid here to a semi-solid or solid state in that dough that we're going to make. It helps to bind these ingredients together and make a soft texture due to the emulsification properties of the egg yolk, the yellow egg yolk here. Emulsification is a process that basically means you're taking 2 components that normally don't mix together, and this egg yolk is causing these 2 products that don't mix to mix, and it helps form a nice solid product. So the eggs are prone to E. coli and salmonella and bacteria and stuff, so I'm going to make sure that I keep my hands clean throughout this process. So I'll take a Lysol wipe here. The next ingredient that I'm going to add is going to be sugar. 1/2 cup sugar to be exact. This sugar, it provides the carbohydrate source that is needed in fermentation. So it's going to react with that yeast and cause that CO2 gas to form and give the bread a nice rise. Actually, it's 1 cup of sugar. Excuse me. Anyway, the sugar is also going to add flavor and tenderness to the dough, and it creates that browning that happens when the dough is baked, the typical browning of the bread. The next ingredient that I'm going to add is butter that has been previously softened. This butter is going to serve as my lipid or fat in my recipe. The structure of this lipid, it helps to prevent a large amount of the disulfide bonds that are formed in gluten. So this lipid is going to cause some of that gluten to lose some of its strength, but that's okay because all these ingredients added together, it's been, this recipe's been perfected, and all these ingredients added together are going to either help strengthen the gluten or weaken it, but together it's going to make it the desired strength and texture that you want this dough to be. The next ingredient that I'm going to add is going to be salt. This 1 teaspoon of salt, excuse me. This salt is going to help to absorb some of the moisture that's in this dough. It keeps it the consistency that we want. It helps to balance out flavors, and it's going to strengthen that gluten network. Salt is sometimes used as a preservative as well. Not so much in this recipe, I guess, so I'm not going to keep it for a long time, but it does help with that. The next ingredient is going to be raisins, and these raisins are just added for flavor, of course, in my cinnamon raisin bread. So I'm going to add those, 1 cup of those. And I'm going to take this milk, which is now checking the temperature. I want it to be 120, 125. Checking it right now. It is at 122, so it is good to go. So I'm going to add this milk. The reason why I didn't want to add it in there when it was bubbling, boiling, is because too hot of milk would have cooked those eggs, and I don't want that happening because I need those eggs as an emulsifier, the yolk in them. So I added the milk. Next, I am going to take this bowl and bring it over here to the mixer. And flour is the last thing I'm going to add for now. And I'm using all-purpose flour because it has a protein content of that between bread flour and cake flour. Bread flour gives you that tough, bread texture that you want, and cake flour is really moist. And in this bread, it's kind of in between that, so we want to use the all-purpose flour. It has a medium level of protein and thus gluten content in it, which is what forms that texture of your bread. So gluten, which is found in this flour, is made up of 2 proteins, gliadin and glutenin. When it's introduced to water, these 2 proteins bond together through disulfide bonds and form the main structure of your dough, the strength of your dough, the backbone of it, I guess you want to call it that. So now I'm adding 8 cups